Ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to the Unstuck movement. I am your host, Rob Z. As I always say, this platform was created for you to find the breakthrough in your life that you need to break the chains that have been holding you back. We get stuck at different places in our lives, and that's okay. That's actually a good thing, because getting stuck, reaching a plateau, means that there's time and there's opportunity for breakthrough in your life to find a higher potential for yourself. So I love to bring people on the show who have found that breakthrough in their lives so that they can give you an example of what their breakthrough looks like to inspire you to reach yours. Okay, so these are stories of faith, perseverance, of strength, of overcoming the odds. And I want to thank the sponsors for making this thing possible. Thank you to AMA, the Author Millionaire Academy. Thank you to the Connected Leaders Academy and Unleash You Now. Today, we have the super amazing, powerful Dr. Keith McNally on the podcast. He is a facilitator who creates impactful discussions by connecting like-minded individuals. He hosts 2 podcasts, the Question Guy podcast and Coach's Corner, focusing on personal transformation and professional expertise, respectively, driven to destigmatize mental health and well-being conversations. He leads the Envision Speakers Series and serves as the U.S. ambassador for Be Happy for Nothing. I love that. An international nonprofit dedicated to meeting basic needs for millions of people. Dr. K, welcome to the Unstuck movement. Thank you for being here.
Rob Z, it's good to be here. And that's a lot going on in my life based on what you just read.
You're a busy guy. You got it happening. So I love to ask questions at the start of these episodes. My belief is that we ask better questions in life, we get better answers. Those answers lead to new breakthroughs. So the question I want to ask you to launch our conversation is, what is the purpose behind your conversations, right? Purposeful conversations, how powerful of a thing to have in your life. And how does that lead to your unstuck story?
Rob, I appreciate that question because, heck, I'm the question guy. And so I'm all on questions. I know all about them. And, the better the question, the better the answer. So it's all rather kind of a mesh. And so this all begins back in COVID, in the quarantine specifically. So when we're stuck and we're locked down, and the globe, all of us, were in some form of another stuck, basically. And we're just going to use your word for today. We were stuck, and we were stuck looking at ourselves in the mirror. And when we did that, many, many people were not happy with what they were seeing reflecting back to them. And so many of us, many people said, I don't like this. I don't like this about myself. I don't like that about myself. And they had one of 2 choices. They could make changes. They could not make changes. The people I started having conversations with were making very specific, very purposeful, very intentional changes to be unstuck. And so that literally meant just about anything. And so for those people who had climbed the corporate ladder and were very successful monetarily with, houses, and outside things looked great, inside they were not aligned with who they thought they were going to become and their values and their morals and all those other things that really wrap our being. And they now had an opportunity to make specific changes. Leave a job. I don't need the money. I could go do something else. Become an entrepreneur, become a small business owner. Others were forced to make changes, and meaning that they had lost a lot of things. They had lost loved ones. They had lost family. They had lost friends. They were grieving. We were hurting. They may have lost job, money, homes. These people made intentional changes because they had to. They had to find a way to survive. They had to find a way of redefining, purpose, meaning, and value for their own lives. And for many, many people, they had to find a way to recover from the grief associated with loss. So this is where those conversations began.
Now, that forced COVID, a lot of people looked at it as a very negative thing. And in many aspects, it was a very negative thing. But the one thing that it did do is it forced us all to stop and to look at ourselves, right? Mm-hmm. Which caused a lot of problems because in a culture where we don't stop very often to look at ourselves and really see what's going on underneath the surface, or what's going on in our families underneath the surface, right?
Yeah.
A lot of problems, perceived problems, can pop up. Those problems, if looked at correctly and taken action on, are opportunities to grow. What did that look like for you, right? So when you were forced to stop in 2020, which was the breeding ground for your podcast and where you're at now, what happened to you in that period that caused you to do this?
Well, I want to say that COVID and the quarantine were the fault, but they really weren't. It was the time for pivot. And so this requires, to answer your question, requires some backstory. And so even though I made it to, I'm a doctor, I'm a college professor by trade, really good. I kind of worked towards that, but my connections, my sphere of influence, or the people that I knew, the number of people that I knew personally, professionally, was rather small. And for all intents, intentions, that had to change. And so I had, in a certain framework, and I'm just going to add this to the conversation because it might add some impact and importance. I had attempted suicide twice in my life, so I know what it means to be alone and lonely and struggle with things. And so what I began to do was take a look at the people on my LinkedIn connection list and started tapping on virtual doors. Hey, do you want to have a conversation? Hey, do you want to have a conversation? And more people were saying, yeah, I do want to have a conversation. And so it's through those conversations that I was growing and maturing and changing, because people were allowing me, little old me, Dr. K, into their lives, even though it was a virtual space. It was the way that we could connect. It was the way that we could have a conversation. It was the way that we can share story. It was the way that we can share pain. It was the way that we can share victories. And that's what was going on. They were sharing with me. I was sharing with them. We were sharing struggles together, and people were growing. And so from one conversation, the next conversation, the next conversation, I was growing as a person. I was making new contacts, and those contacts were becoming friends or colleagues or business partners or collaborators, whatever that looked like. And then I became very comfortable sharing my story with others, just like everybody else. I think we were all kind of in that growing space together. So when you said COVID hit us, like a storm, and it was a very negative impact, the negativity associated with COVID had to do with the loss that was incurred. The positive aspect of COVID is that we made specific changes to overcome and get unstuck from the negativity that it was associated with. Now, even today, there are people out there still struggling. Some people have not recovered, financially or through family, and some people grieve harder than others. And those people I'm still reaching out to, trying to find so that I could have conversations with them. Because now, 3 years later, I have connected with people all over the world. I know people in different spaces, coaches, healers, people of faith. And so wherever your space is, if you hurt in a certain way, or if you need help in a certain way, I probably know somebody who can help you.
Man, Dr. K, it sounds like we have similar stories and paths in this direction here, because over the past few years, I too have connected to so many powerful people. And when I say powerful, I mean like inspirationally powerful, spiritually powerful, just mentally or emotionally powerful people, right? Who, when you bring those kind of people in your life. So I'm going to cover a couple of things you just mentioned, because this is so important, I think, for a lot of people out there, especially if you live in a small town, right? And you may not feel like you connect with people in your town. Maybe you feel like you think differently than people think where you live, right?
Mhm.
The online space, the Zoom space, LinkedIn, Facebook, whatever platform it might be. Sure, it's a way to waste a lot of time if you want to use it for that, but it's also a way to find amazing connections with incredible people who want to grow like you do. And it sounds like you have found that. I also have found that. So you were saying about, like, these conversations you were having were creating these connections in your life. And it's so true. I feel like so many people, and I have multiple people in my life who say things like, "I'm a lone wolf," and they kind of pride themselves on being a lone wolf. Oh, these are guys, right? And they've kind of pushed women off as, I don't need women. I'm a lone wolf kind of thing. And it's not good. It might sound cool to you to say it, but it's very unhealthy and it's really destructive for your life.
Yeah.
So trying to help them walk through that process, right? Because conversations, real conversations, deep conversations make real connections, and sharing your story leads to healing, right? So you saying about sharing your story, and thank you, by the way, for sharing that you had attempted suicide twice, and I'm honored that you would share that, and I'm so sorry that you had to go through that period of your life. But sharing that story, it's amazing how that helps you to heal. I love the concept of make your mess your message. This mess that was something that had to deal with, I overcame it. Now I can use it to help other people. And the more I tell it, the better I get, the more I heal. And the more I tell it, I encourage other people to share their stories also. So that's just incredible. I really, really admire you for doing that, because that's exactly what we have to do as people, so we can build those relationships. And we need those challenges in our life to overcome. We need the challenges like COVID to overcome it, to grow to the next level. What have you noticed over the past couple of years of having these conversations and building these deeper relationships? How has it changed you as a person? Because I want people to hear this so that they know that there's possibility for them to grow and change through connections and conversations.
So starting out, like I said, my connections, my numbers were small. Just that's how I grew up. I grew up with, I grew up in Philly, but I didn't. My parents were divorced. My dad's an alcoholic, so the traditional, typical, sob story. And so I'm not going to go deep into that. But as a result, it impacted me. Didn't have a father figure, a dad figure. So questioning, sometimes questioning your manhood or who you are as an individual. Um, Very difficult to make friends and make real connections. But through this experience, I allowed myself, and here I am, just turned 54. So 3 years ago, 51, a man, a half a century old plus is becoming vulnerable, is allowing himself to share pain, uh, anxiety, fear. One with other men, and so having those real men connections, those men conversations, was important. And because of that, you learn to be yourself. We have a lot of emphasis on what we do in life. We want to achieve great things. We want to own big cars and big houses or whatever, big money, whatever that looks like, have big fame. But then we forget to be. And so we were empty inside. And so when two guys can get together and have a conversation and just say, yeah, I've been through that stuff and I totally understand. And even if the other person doesn't and just says, you know, I've had other experiences, and we could really appreciate the fact that, one, by and large, human beings struggle with things. Two, we have emotions that sometimes we don't know how to deal with or even understand. Three, because we don't know how to deal with those emotions, our behaviors are screwed or screwed up in some way. Typically, men turn to violence or substances. But when we allow ourselves to talk and allow ourselves to share, we then unknowingly maybe allow ourselves to to heal. Now, I'm not dismissing, modern medicine or medications if you're in deep depression or anxiety or all those other kind of things. What I'm suggesting is that real connections are also a way to heal. Real conversations are a part of the human journey. We need each other. We need to converse. We need to share. The very word history is divided into his story or her story. We need to know each other's story. And it's in that way that we appreciate one another, we understand each other, and most importantly, we can help each other.
Very true, man. 'Cause we live through stories, right? We learn through stories. We're impacted by stories. We view our life as a story, right? It is really interesting because
Hi, my name is Jose Escobar, and I'm the founder and CEO of the Connected Leaders Academy. We're a growing tribe, a community of entrepreneurs all over the world, globally, all across the country, high performers, titans of industry. If you're an entrepreneur and you're looking to grow personally and professionally, scale your influence, develop your skill sets, move the needle in your business, more clients, more money, more profit, the bottom line, and of course, grow your circle and your network like never before, this is where you want to be. Join the Connected Leaders Academy today. We are scaling massively. We want to welcome you in. Check me out on Instagram and on Facebook, the @ JAESCO25. We look forward to having you join us. Take care.
in the education system, we get stuck very much in information and just like filling yourself with information and facts and remembering. But no, you remember through stories, and that's how we we frame our life. That's really good. I would love to connect you with a guy I just did a podcast with, Scott Macon, who his whole, Scott.
No, but you just did. You shouted out to Scott. Say Scott.
Oh, it's so cool because his whole he has a foundation for neuro change, right? So he helps people change neurologically through conversations, through group conversations. That's mostly men, and they were doing it just what you just said, like through conversations, vulnerable, transparent conversations. That's where the healing comes from, right? Yeah. So it teaches you how to open up more. And I find it fascinating, man. By the way, you don't look, did you say 54?
I just turned 54. So this is, at the time of this recording, what we're in September, back in August of 2023.
Yep. Cool.
Turned 54.
So I was going to guess early 40s. So
I'm good with that too.
You got that going for you. But I was going to say, to open up at, halfway through your life, that's a really hard thing for a lot of people to do, right? You hit that point and you have a fork in the road, really. What made you open up? Like what was it, the conversations, what other people were giving to you, what you were receiving from these people that you met? And also, how did you meet them? Like, I know you said you met them on LinkedIn, you started the podcast, but how did you reach out to them? How did you break the ice for those conversations?
So let's start with that question first and then go into the second question, if I can remember what that was. And so it was really easy, or hard, really, depending on how you look at it, because a shy person doesn't necessarily want to reach out to other people. But because there seemed to be a need inside of me to change, I simply, connect all those people, their resumes on their about section, their little picture in the profile, hey, do you want to have a conversation? We've been connected. Now, some of them I've had, so it wasn't just like cold calling somebody and say, hey, do you want to talk? Mm-hmm. Some people, you do what the social media platform expects you to do, and you like and you engage and you comment and you kind of do those cool things. And then maybe one or two people you kind of really, you find some points of interest. So it always starts there. So then there was actually people who were creating spaces. And so one of the spaces back in the day, I'm not sure if it's still around, But other people, they were kind of popping up all over the place. These networking groups, and some of them you have to pay to play, you have to pay to join. I don't typically do that. Some of them you didn't have to, and one of them was called Quad Meets, where you kind of sign up and you sign up for a time. So it's international, and you sign up for a time and day that was fit your schedule, and there would be the organizer of that meeting. So 4 people would come together, but one person was organizing and orchestrating the conversation for 30 minutes. You get to meet 2 other people. So 3 strangers and, 1 organizer. And so that kind of started, it was a really unique thing to kind of say, they'll ask like 3 basic questions. And so something silly or something serious or whatever it was. And so there was a means, a methodology to kind of start doing this, jumping on a Zoom call and saying hey to a stranger. And so once that started to happen, it wasn't just doing that. It was going back to, my LinkedIn connection and saying, I see that you're doing this, or, you're right here and I'm in Virginia. So you're right here in Virginia. You want to, see if we got anything worth talking about. People started saying, yeah. Now, it wasn't always a yes at first, of course, but, I'm in the college space, or at least I was. So started talking with other professors, and then you're in, the IT space. And so you're talking to other IT professionals, and then you're in whatever space. And then you're talking to them. And then, so it slowly does. And this is the weird or great thing about life, is that once you start something, once you give yourself permission to start something, the next step is a little bit easier, and the next step is a little bit easier, and then until it becomes something very natural. So right now, if we were strangers and I saw that you had a podcast and I was creating podcasts, connect with other podcast hosts such as ourselves. Hey, let's talk. Let's have a conversation. Maybe I can jump on your show, and maybe you can jump on mine. It just starts small. And to be quite frankly, I forget what your initial question was, but
that's okay. We don't even have to go back to it, because I'm going to continue on this thread that we're on right now, because especially on LinkedIn, I've been on LinkedIn for a while, and almost 99.9% of all DMs that I get is somebody pretending to want to really get to know me so they can sell me something. And I can smell it.
Yeah.
I can smell it. It's like I know this is not you being genuine. I know it. And so I've done it enough times. And now what I'll do is I'll invite people on for a conversation. So I'll get a DM and I'll say, hey, I'd love to have a conversation. Let's just get to know each other. Let's just have a genuine, authentic conversation. And that weeds out the 99.9% that are just trying to sell me something. Yeah. And so it's funny you're saying that, because I'm thinking of something right now as you're talking about this. It's really the Zoom space is very interesting, because it is, some people see it as inauthentic, like not a close enough connection to meet people and really build relationships. I've heard that from people, mostly older people, right? They feel like it's still in person is the place. But Zoom is really cool, because you got 2 people on a Zoom. There's nobody else involved. It's not like you're in a room and somebody else can walk in. It's you and them.
Or a coffee shop where there's a bunch of noise. Yeah.
Right. It's you and them, and there's nothing else going on. And I love that. So there's something very powerful to that I can tell you tapped into when you were building these relationships. And I think for other people out there listening, authentic social media connections is huge. So when you're DMing somebody and you genuinely aren't trying to sell them anything, you genuinely are just trying to get to know them. Because I do this too.
For your audience sake, I'm still doing that. And so I'm not trying to sell you something. Right. I really would love to have a conversation and get you on my show.
Well, this is what I do, is like I'll just DM people that I might be already connected with, or somebody I just found, and I send them a friend request and connect with them. And on a business end, build referrals. So we'll have a conversation. I'll find out who their referrals are, who's a great connection for them to help build them and help them out. Then I tell them who's a great referral for me, and then we just kind of talk and chat, and that builds those relationships, because they find out I'm actually not trying to sell them anything. I'm just trying to make connections and build relationships and connect people together. So I think when people find out,
well, can I add to that?
Sure.
Can I add to that point? Because I think, and if you're not doing it, well, you probably are doing it because I know I'm doing it, is it's not just about the word referral. I really simply connect people with other people. And so, we're both in the podcast space. And so I know other podcasters, and I'm part of a podcast network. And so when I have a conversation, for example, somebody rather recently who her husband died by suicide several years ago, and now she's on, after healing, she's now on her mission to help and heal other people. And she was kind of getting new into the podcast space. And so I said, I know people for you. And that's what we do. It wasn't necessarily a referral for money, but you disconnect them. And now her life is changed because she's now been on 5 different podcasts. She's continuing her mission, and we still stay connected. So you're exactly right.
Yeah, it's amazing, especially to if you're stuck in a place of depression, if you're stuck in a place of not feeling like you can't find the right people in your life. There's a lot of people out there who can help in a very major way, and getting connected in the way that you're talking is huge. So as we're coming to the close of this, I want to ask the audience the question, because I always do this. I want to make sure that anybody who's listening or watching right now, what is the purpose behind your conversations? All right. It's the question that I asked Dr. K at the beginning of this. I want to ask you that. What is the purpose behind your conversations that you're having in your life? Are they purposeful? Are you meeting new people and having deeper conversations? Do you have people in your life that you have surface conversations with and you want to go deeper with them? And I want to find out from you, Dr. K, in your personal life, with people close to you, how has this journey impacted you? Because I know, like, your podcast, you're bringing people on, you're learning about them, you're helping promote their business, you're learning more about them personally. How does that also then transfer to you in your day-to-day life with yourself and the people that are closest to you? Has it transformed the way that you interact?
So those people who know me or who are close to me, and I'm about to say something that really upsets them, but I think it still needs to be said. So again, at the time of this recording, it's September 2023, October, so almost a year ago, I had a major heart attack that has severely damaged my heart, my organ. I'm not given too much longer to live. However, I am on, strict diet, medication, and, Western medicine, medical treatment. Recent tests indicate that my heart is weakening. So tests this year. So I specifically am on a mission to have, if I can, before I die, 1 million conversations, and that's 1 million different conversations. So I've got a long way to go to get there, but people are helping me in that mission. And so because I connect people with other people, and some of those connections have been glorious for those people because, some people are grieving. And so, hey, I know a grief coach. Hey, I'm struggling financially. Well, I know a financial coach. Hey, I just want to, have a conversation with whoever. I know somebody in that space. And so in return, the kindness is being returned. So they are connecting me with people such as yourself, because we're connected through a third party. And even though this is a podcast conversation, still, I do count it as another conversation towards that 1 million.
For sure. Absolutely. Yeah.
So,
no doubt.
So if I can achieve that before my heart just totally gives out on me, that would be pretty cool.
Well, brother, I don't know if you're a praying man, but I'm going to be praying for you, because you can be healed from that. And
I've talked with healers, and they said we could, channel energies.
I'm not,
because I've made the attempt, suicide attempt twice. I'm not afraid of dying. So I want to make every minute I have alive.
I love it.
I'm going to live it.
I love it. Building those connections, making those relationships happen. That's amazing. I love your story, man. Thank you for being open and sharing that. That's powerful stuff. And I'm sorry you've gone through all of that. And
I'm not.
I can tell. Well, good. I'm just, from my end, I want to acknowledge like the struggle, and to come through it, and to be even stronger and to know that you have like a purpose of connecting people and building these relationships, having those conversations. I love that so much. So Dr. K, thank you for coming on. Anything you want to leave the audience with, and what's the best way to get a hold of you?
LinkedIn is the best way, even though I've got a website, it needs to be updated. Please connect. Let's have a conversation. Please subscribe to my YouTube. As long as I'm alive, those numbers are important. So I'm trying to get to at least 1,000. The Envision Speakers Series will get out to major podcast platforms by October 1st. And if you could purchase my book, Walking the Path of the Leader's Journey, all proceeds to the book goes towards suicide prevention services.
Amazing. I'll put those in the show notes so people have an opportunity to check those out and to get connected with you and support your cause. I want to thank you, Dr. K, for helping people get unstuck today.
Thank you, Rob. Thank you so much.